Let's start. So just please go ahead and introduce yourself and say a few things.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Oh, is it on? Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Amie Plourde. I work with Pearson Canada. I've been in this industry for just over 20 years. You're welcome to call me a publisher. I don't mind it, but Pearson would probably tell me to say that we are an education company or an education technology company. And that's really demonstrated by the fact that over 90% of what we sell are digital products. So they're, online learning experiences. And less than 10% of what we sell is actually textbooks. So we've really, transitioned over the last, I want to say, few years from textbooks into this online landscape.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nosal. I'm with McGrawHill, and I've been with the company for over 12 years. I'm in a marketing and product role with our Alex solution, which focuses on the math and statistics learning in chemistry. Very similar, I would say. When you look at our what we actually sell or distribute, it's at a 90% digital stage as well. Similar ed tech, we've gone on the road of learning science as well. You could say very interchangeable words, but there's definitely been that digital transition overall with learning solutions, and very excited just to communicate some of the questions that have been offered up to us and questions that you may have throughout.
Hi, everyone. My name is Scott Brayne, and I am a product marketing manager for math and stats for Cengage Canada. I've been in this industry for just about 10 years. I was with Nelson, that was a partner of Cengage before the Cengage Canada team began operations here about 5 years ago now. I'm not going to say anything new. These two have really kind of echoed the direction that a lot of the traditional publishers, if you want to think of them as that, have gone. Our platform, just to give a little bit of context for math and statistics, is WebAssign, if you've heard about it or not. And certainly for these disciplines that we're going to be covering today, what we deal with, what we service the most, what we offer to our customers the most is, like Greg just said, about 90% of those digital technologies.
Hello. Yeah, you guys already met me. Just for anyone who is just logging in. I'm Maria, and I'm a product manager for education technology products, most recently D2L, Top Hat, currently at Red Thread Innovation, and namely right now at Red Thread Innovation, one of the projects that I'm working on is creating a code base for a very adaptable, we also call it headless in industry, learning management system, which will allow to establish more customized, more flexible learning management systems in the future.
So now the first question that we have prepared in advance, how do you see the role of printed textbooks evolving over the next decade, with a traditional 3 to 4 year cycle for new editions becoming less common? What alternatives such as modular content, subscription-based materials, or AI-driven resources are publishers exploring? Anybody wants to start?
I'll start filling this one. So I'll just start off by saying, despite that sort of balance right now between the 90% digital, the 10% print, we do recognize that there is still a need for print, a want for print in the education landscape, whether it's instructors wanting that or a smaller cohort of students wanting a physical medium to study from and maybe having a resource to reference in the future. So I will begin just answering this question by saying that for us, our ethos there has always been, if there is that need for print, we will continue to offer it. That being said, as was discussed in the previous session, the larger and larger movement to digital really offers us as content producers a lot more flexibility in meeting the needs of our users. So with the majority of students preferring digital resources and these digital resources being adopted into courses, it allows us much more flexibility and being more rapid in terms of addressing customer needs, student needs, whether it is content updates, whether whether it's new activity types, new assignments, things like that. And so one of the main advantages, obviously, is being more in tune with our users. And then in terms of content types, modular approaches, one of the other main advantages of digital content is the customization and the flexibility that you have as instructors to model it to best fit your courses. So whereas with a textbook, maybe you wanted to teach chapter 10 before chapter 9, you can still do that, but obviously there's much more freedom. If you find that over semesters, there's any areas of your courses that students are struggling with in particular, maybe you want to take that chapters, spread it over multiple weeks. You want to assign more activities, more learning tools for the students. Maybe there's some remediation activities that you want to implement in those courses or those weeks. You can certainly do that. So it's just about expanding that content and having more freedom there to best meet your course and your course needs.
So as I mentioned earlier, I started in this industry over 20 years ago. When I started, I was always on the product side. So I was building textbooks, and a lot of time was spent on picking out a cover. You'd be amazed how authors, subject matter experts are very passionate about the cover of their textbook. And we talked a lot about the boxes we're going to put into the textbook and some of the supplements. And, the reason I think I've stayed in this industry for over 20 years now is because of that evolution that I've been able to be a part of in that transition to digital. There's just so much more that we're doing now for educators, for learners. And I'm really passionate about that. I have 2 kids. One of them is in high school and he has a learning disability. He needs to learn in different ways. And now we're making our resources so much more accessible, and we're able to personalize the learning experience for students. And we're also able to personalize it for the instructor too. Just as Scott was saying, there's so much customization with our resources, but I think most importantly for the student, it really allows them to learn, in the most effective way for them. And that to me is a huge shift. And I'm really excited to be a part of it. And I will say, I grew up not being able to afford textbooks when I went to university. So I do have feelings about open education resources and what I do. But I will say, I think there's something with the competition we have here that pushes each of us to continue to evolve our resources. And that's so important. And I think it's also important to have Canadian representation in this area, especially right now. So I think, it's been really exciting to see the evolution over the last couple of decades that I've been part of this industry. And I'm so excited about where we're going next with AI and what's on the horizon.
Yeah, and just to elaborate or expand, on a lot of what you've already heard, a lot of the movement with the role of print text, it'll depend on the trends that are actively happening. With the shift to remote learning, having that textbook and what you needed to do to transition your course online, it required more resources, more tools to enable you as faculty and your students in that learning experience. And so, just ensuring that, to Scott's point, having options available for every learner, that's going to continue to be something that we as a publisher are going to offer. But when we look at these advancements with generative AI, incorporating that into our digital learning solutions and taking advantage of that capability to really create those experiences for your students and to help you achieve your goals, your learning objectives. That's where a lot of the investments are happening, and taking advantage of that in the digital space is where we're going to have the opportunity to really make the most impact on your experience using the resources and for your students learning the content.
Yeah, thank you. So what I'm thinking, purely from technical perspective, I think the role of textbooks as, the carrier of information is not going to go anywhere, in the sense that we will still need this vast content base. That's what Charles and I were talking about in our talk, is that we still need vast massives of data precisely to be able to adapt to each learner's needs. And then when this need is met, what I'm thinking is, I think things are going to switch towards more like York University recently adopted. They adopted this model where each course had its chatbot that's trained on the course syllabus and the textbook, or a set of materials that the teacher, professor provided themselves. And the chat has built-in ability to answer questions, to help the student prepare for a certain assessment, because the chat also knows about the focuses of assessments, it learns about objectives. But also what I'm thinking is that it's not, probably it will not be as much about the textbooks or the learning materials themselves as the education as a whole. I think we are, like, as a society, are going to move even more towards personalization and, you know, being a bit more and more adaptive. So like you mentioned, for students who are neurodivergent, there's so many students like that. We're going to pay more attention about like personalizing each course for the specific learner's needs. And this is where like AI chatbots that are based on a certain content will come in. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll follow up with another question that is actually even combining the second one or bridging to the second one. When publishers are developing textbooks or material, do you have teachers in your mind or you have students in your mind? And then the actual question is, what are the biggest challenges digital textbooks face in adoption and effectiveness? How have textbook prices, revenue models, and accessibility concerns evolved over the last 20 years? We mentioned earlier through the day that cost is one of the biggest challenges that teachers and students identified.
I'm going to try to remember all that, but maybe let me start with accessibility. So as I mentioned, I think, you know, with that move to digital and accessibility, that's something that is a huge focus for us, and making sure that we make learning and our resources more inclusive for all students that want to learn and that are passionate. And that's something that we absolutely do with the different modes of learning that we invest in and the different types of resources we invest in. So that's a big piece of it. In terms of cost, so I hope everyone knows in this room that digital costs less than print. It does. Like, that was one of the benefits when we moved to a digital model, is we could actually charge less to the students. We've also developed some ways of, you know, making it accessible for students who may struggle with the cost. We have a trial period. I'm in the product side, so Jeff can keep me honest, but I think it's a couple of weeks so students can get in and use the products until, you know, their OSAP comes in, or, you know, until that assistance comes in, that financial assistance. And, you know, with Pearson too, we also have great relationships with our instructors. So if there is a student in need in their course and they identify themselves, then there's ways that we make those resources available to them. So, you know, we want to be compassionate in, you know, how we run, you know, a for-profit business. So that's, you know, part of it as well. I can't remember if I missed. Pardon me?
Who do you have in mind?
Who do I have in mind? Yeah. So it's really both. And it makes it really interesting because we spend a lot of time with instructors, but we also try to spend a lot of time engaging with students, talking to them, understanding how, you know, their behaviors have changed. I think all of you would agree that, you know, or maybe they're not so different than when I was a student, but I think they are. I think that they have different expectations. I think they are, you know, looking to be engaged in different ways than maybe when we were students. So we have those conversations to understand, you know, what are they learning from? Where are they going to learn things? I have a teenage son. He's learned everything on YouTube. That's what he will tell you. And, you know, he absolutely believes that. So yeah, so that's definitely informing how we're building our resources. But I think whether we're talking to instructors or students, you know, even when we talk to instructors, they're thinking about their students as well. So, you know, they're very close to the learner and understanding what's challenging them, you know, what could be helpful to them. So I think, you know, in those conversations, we're also thinking about the student.
Yeah, and when you're looking at the development of resources, that customization is a critical piece. You know, when you look at a algebra course, a pre-calculus course, a calculus course, you know, as said earlier, you know, the content is relatively similar, whether you're using a Pearson, McGraw, Cengage, or other like an OpenStax OER resource. Really, it's the presentation of it, the delivery of it, and the engagement that you're getting with that content that's could make or break a student's ability to learn, understand, and actually master that material. And so when we look at, what are we gearing it towards students? Or are we gearing it towards faculty? It's both, right? It's how are students going to engage with this interface, stay motivated, work through, learn those skills, learn those concepts, learn what they need to do to be successful. And from a faculty perspective, how are they going to present it? So factoring that in on both sides to complement and also give insights on student activity to really empower their teaching and their activity, and ability to pivot, I'll say, is critical. When it comes to delivery means as well, beyond the trial periods, it's institution initiatives that come in surface with bookstores, for example, institution access or inclusive access models where course fees are built into the tuition costs, just to ensure the most affordable options for students is another way that we're working to partner and provide access to tools to as many students as possible without creating barriers. The other piece I just kind of jotted down as we were talking was, the idea of bite-sized learning. A student learning in a classroom 20 years ago, you ask them what TikTok is, what Instagram is, that didn't exist 20 years ago. That attention span is very different. And so the development of resources are also, we have to factor in how students learn now to ensure that we can still offer solutions that work for today's student, not students of yesterday. So.
Yeah, I'll keep it short here. I don't have too much more to add on to what these two have said. But just to the point of logistics, like Amie mentioned off the top, digital resources obviously are cheaper. There's not nearly as much overhead cost associated with printing, shipping, et cetera. But also for students, and this is a smaller cohort, but any students that might accidentally enroll in the wrong digital course, rather than them purchasing the wrong textbook and going through a process of returns. And like was mentioned, some students might not have all the financial means to just buy the right textbook while the return is being processed for the one they're returning. With digital resources, we can do that with a click of a few buttons on a 2-minute chat, basically. Like Greg was mentioning, it opens up different purchase pathways. I mean, one thing that we've been getting really excited about, in addition to institutional models, is subscription models. So think of something like a Netflix, where students would pay kind of a base fee for a semester and then be able to access our whole catalog of content, as well as any digital platforms that are used for any of their courses, say in a math department, or any other courses in any other departments that they might be using. And then in terms of addressing instructors versus students, Greg just touched on this a little bit, but it's become so tantamount when developing these resources now. It's not just about working with content matter experts and subject matter experts, but also learning designers and specialists in learning pedagogy to make sure that everything we're doing obviously is applicable to these courses, is meeting a level of rigor that the instructor wants to implement, but is also designed so that the students are going to master these concepts and they're not going to be going in circles. And then it's really going to hit them a lot harder and be more meaningful than just like they would have done 15 years ago, just trying to read a textbook, maybe going back and reading that same paragraph 3 times. The tools they have now are really meant to make that content impactful.
Yeah, I was just going to mention a few things which I've noticed with learning management systems specifically. So what we see is that large learning management systems tend to be over-focused, I would say, on instructor side. Mm-hmm. And this is because I think there's still this, how like there's adoption inertia, that's what we call it. So I think this is because it was heavily assumed that instructor, or maybe like, let's say if it's a very large course and many instructors teach it, one instructor is the head instructor, they're the only ones who are preloading the information into the learning management system and presenting it. And that's why I think learning management systems have been so focused on instructor side, to the point where it's like, even the student related bugs or something that's not working are deprioritized sometimes. If something is not working for instructor, that's it. Like that gets fixed first. If something's not working for student, it will get fixed, but maybe slightly later. But I think now things are changing. Now I actually mean like really recently in the last couple of years, because I think more and more college and university departments are actually hiring specific instructional designers whose job and responsibility is to make sure that the course is properly entered into learning management systems, like all the material is properly entered. Like, for example, let's say, even when I was in grad school, when I would like help my graduate advisor teach a course, he had to do absolutely everything himself. Like if something needed to show up on Blackboard, he would be the only one who would do it. That would take lots of time. Right now, like in September, I'm about to teach a course on product management at Sheridan College. They gave me a team of 4 instructional designers who meet with me every week, and they say, like, I don't think they even asked me like what I prefer. They would say, okay, our students want to see this, this, and this in the course outline. Let's talk about it. Like, we're going to show you how it's going to be represented in the learning management system, everything. So I think there's a shift. So yeah, does that answer the question?
Thank you. Yeah, that is pretty good. And we're going to probably come back to the learning management system again. AI is rapidly advancing. How do you see its role in textbook development and learning materials? How do you balance maintaining high quality peer-reviewed content with the demand for faster, more customizable digital materials?
Yeah, when it comes to AI, our digital learning platform, Alex, it's been leveraging AI for 25 years now. And so it's taking advantage of that idea of machine learning AI, just really focused on teaching math well and being able to adapt and increase its efficiency to really understand where a student is at, understand where they need to go, and giving them what they need at the right time. And so that development of AI, or that increased exposure to AI, really has put a spotlight on kind of the behind the scenes of how the platform actually works, and puts us in a position to have that conversation that more people are ready to have now. So that AI piece, we've always been considering it, and we're continuing to leverage it now. And the emphasis of having that digital learning solution, if things are needed, having a bit more of like an evergreen model that doesn't necessarily change editions, but rather provides the updates in that electronic format to have always that most current content in place. It's an exciting time to be able to offer content and learning solutions to make an impact on a course. When we're looking at balancing that quality of content and peer review piece, having experts, making sure that quality and accuracy is in place, and the ability to push updates or fixes live. Nothing is perfect. There's always errata or mistakes, but in that digital space, you can always push it through in a more live atmosphere overall. Just double checking the last piece there. And then just the flexibility overall, just having, again, the course itself, you tend to have a list of topics that are going to be consistent regardless. And so that presentation, I think, Scott, you were alluding to it earlier, just if you want to cover this earlier or you want to cover this later, having that in place, but leveraging that learning science or like that knowledge space theory in the case of Alex, to make sure the presentation of content is teaching a student to walk before they can run, and presenting it in a sequence that won't ask them to do something beyond their skill level, I think is one of those advantages too that we're seeing with the use of AI.
So I probably want to start by saying, like, I consider AI a tool. And so I always, as a product person, emphasize the importance and value of subject matter experts in, having ownership over how we use that tool, and really being critical to how we use AI. Because without subject matter experts, I think there's a lot of danger with a publisher using AI. So I would start there. I think there's just so much opportunity to be more efficient, more personalized as we bring AI into our products. But really, I think the responsibility we have as a publisher too is to teach learners how to use AI. So, when we set up our tools, that is something that is very intentional. So for example, we have an AI study tool in our products that students can ask questions, around homework. They can use it as their personal tutor. But the AI doesn't give you the answer. The AI walks you through a set of questions to help you figure out the answer. And I think that's really important. Just getting students to really consider, what is good use of AI and what maybe is not the way to use AI, because it's really hurting your future and your learning if you're not using it in those right ways. So I think that's a real important responsibility for educators and for us here. And that's something I'm thinking about as I work with our subject matter experts, work with Pearson to understand how AI can be a useful tool for us.
Again, I don't have too much to add after both of those pieces, but I think Amie really highlighted an incredible point there. It's so important for us to incorporate AI right now in ways that's going to align with the overall pedagogy of these digital platforms, and being so specific about how it's used, the different types of assignments it's available in, et cetera. Obviously, this is a very big topic now in education and life in general, and students using chatbot, et cetera. But every step that we take is ensuring the credibility of this and ensuring, like was said, these resources aren't just going to give students the answers. They can't game it to basically cheat on their assignments. And there's so many steps that's taken. I mean, we've talked about the development of these tools, but it's also not something that we want to rush out to the market. We obviously talk to instructors. We hear that chatbot is a big concern of them. That doesn't necessarily mean it's something that we want to implement in our platforms for the start of next semester. These things do take time, and we roll them out slowly in specific ways in specific areas, and are constantly listening to feedback from the instructors, from the students. That's so important to us and tantamount to how we scale these solutions basically across the board for all of our disciplines and all of our platforms.
Yeah, I was just going to add that basically in terms of being in line with pedagogy, just wanted to give an example how hard it is to actually make sure that AI does not go beyond its limits and really stays in line with pedagogy, even when it says that it does. So for example, last summer, my team was working on AI educational chatbot for LaUNA careers platforms. Basically, it's a website that helps students who want to go in trades understand what's their next education step, like which college, which program they want to go to, and educates them about those careers. So you might say it's not even the amount of information would not even amount to, let's say, a middle-sized textbook, so not too much. So originally, my developers on my team were saying, okay, Maria, we're going to adopt OpenAI under the hood. We're going to make this chatbot. We know from your documentation what is that the chatbot can or cannot do. We will do it for you in a couple of weeks. Okay, and turned out that basically I had to completely reject at least 3 tries that my team built, because no matter what our developers were doing, the chat would always venture out and either make information up that was not, the learners were not supposed to see. It would make up either resources, or it will give slightly inaccurate, but still inaccurate enough information about what can happen in those careers, like what the career progressions are. And yeah, so the developers tried every single trick in the book until maybe 4th or 5th iteration was slightly something that I was willing to show people for pilot for a very small group of students, and also not the new students who took similar course before. But yeah, ridiculously hard. And the bigger your data set gets, the more opportunities your AI gets to venture out and make things up, or yeah, just be out of line with your expectations. So yeah, very hard task, but I'm excited to see how it's going to be solved. Yeah.
Thank you. And another follow-up while we were talking, what Amie said at the beginning, like my company is not a publisher, it's an educational institution. So with AI, maybe not good as good at the moment, maybe, but later on, I cannot fight the feeling that maybe my job will be at stake here. Because if the educational institution is gonna help students learn, then why am I here? Just an opinion from the top of my head. Now that we mentioned AI, how are publishers addressing concerns about academic integrity? What role should publishers play in ensuring fair security assessments and preventing answer-seeking behavior?
Well, I think with AI, academic integrity has come up as a big issue that we talk to a lot of customers about again, but we've always talked to customers about, students have always found ways to cheat, right? And so this isn't new. This isn't a new challenge. And so what I think that the new challenge is how do we, evolve our resources, the tools that we're building for learners to better engage them so that they are not tempted to cheat, to challenge them in ways that also support academic integrity. And a lot of that comes with assessment as well. So it's a fun period to be in our industry right now, because I think there are challenges that we're looking to solve and help figure out, partnering with educators. But yeah, I think those would be the couple of things I would say is it's really about engagement and figuring out better ways of building, whether it's formative or summative assessment. And I always think there's a place for educators, and I've had focus groups with educators talking about generative AI. And really, I think the role that educators play in, being a facilitator on that learning journey for students, AI, I don't think will do that job, will replace that job for educators. I really don't. And I think when you talk to institutions, learners, when you talk to industry, they're really focused on skill development, and that's really important. And I think that's going to be an opportunity, I would hope. And I already know that institutions are thinking about skill development, but that's a big part of it. And that's something as part of an education company we're thinking about is how do we support that skill development, which will be so essential, those human skills, with the advances in AI. So that's where we're going.
Yeah, when it comes to combating AI, the tools itself, for one, not intended to replace faculty, but rather to complement and increase your efficiency to be able to ultimately achieve your outcomes, your goals, make you more efficient with those efforts. Because one of the most precious resources we all have is time, and we're constantly being asked to do more. A lot of those conversations that you hear in discussions with faculty is I've been asked to do this and this and this, and these resources have been taken away from me. How can I do this with such limited time? And you still want to be able to focus on your students and making sure that they're taking on that path, from coming into your course and successfully achieving all of those learning outcomes. So having a resource that allows you more time to focus on what you want to focus on, as opposed to the administration of things, that's where a lot of prioritization is of our investments and our resources. And when it comes to cheating, it's often at the forefront of your mind, but we're trying to pull together resources that make it more difficult to cheat. You'll never eliminate it, as Amie was saying. It's not something you're going to eliminate. If a student can cheat, they'll spend more hours cheating than they will that it would take just to solve a problem. You know, it's the idea of beating the system sometimes is more fun for them. But with the tools that that we're pushing out, it's not just like a multiple choice style question, but rather more free response tools, resources that try to mimic that paper and pencil experience as best as possible in a digital environment. I know you were highlighting that before, but beyond mimicking that experience, it's making it more interactive. So it's not a matter of, I'm just going to plop this into ChatGPT, ask for the answer. Rather, you have to work through a series of processes to get to the answer and show that it is in fact your work and not just the work of the computer doing it for you overall.
To the point about the fear of AI and these digital technologies replacing instructors. This is obviously nothing new. I wasn't around for this, but my colleagues always talk about with the advent of the internet in the education space. Students will have access now to computers at home and the internet. Is that going to replace instructors? It didn't. A couple of years ago during lockdown, we had digital technologies, a lot of the same platforms that we are using today. I mean, AI wasn't quite as big then, but students for the first time were learning from a distance, doing much more of the coursework, and much more of the onus of learning was on them. And we found that they did not succeed like they had beforehand when they were learning in class, and like they have since when they're back in class with an instructor. So this is very much just another progression in that cycle. AI is just a new technology. It's the new shiny thing right now. But as we've seen time and again throughout this economic landscape, the need for instructors is tantamount. And then just a real quick point on addressing student academic dishonesty. I mean, one of the key ethos of these learning platforms is to provide just in time or support for the students, or support at the exact point in time when they need it, whether that's after a lecture or maybe it's as they're going through an assignment, and in question tutorials or different sets of problems that they can answer in a low stakes environment. And really that is about addressing student frustration. Traditionally, maybe it was before AI, students are going through the assignments, they're realizing they don't understand the concepts quite enough, and they get a little bit frustrated, they get a little bit mad and give up. Well, now we have these tools in there to support you at the time of that frustration. And I think that applies perfectly to this new landscape with AI. When are students most likely to use AI to cheat? When they're trying to go through the assignments and they just don't get it. All right, I'm going to go to the chatbot. I'm going to put the problem that I'm trying to do into that, have it solve it for me. Well, if we can dissuade against that, mitigate that by giving the students support, okay, watch this tutorial, quick 2-minute video instead of going to a chatbot. Maybe try these broken down problems, just some support at the time of need for students to dissuade them to just resort to cheating.
Yeah, that's also one of my favorite topics, and I want to talk about it for an hour, but we don't have an hour. So in short, yeah, building on what you've mentioned, students will not need to resort to academic dishonesty if they are properly engaged in the material, and if they understand where exactly this material fits into their professional journey or into their current life. So definitely, to your point, if this intervention is provided early, that would be great. And also, I don't think AI is coming after anyone's job, like be it a teacher, like a developer, like product manager, anyone, but it is changing every single career. And I think the nature of assessment itself needs to change. So I think like the old definition of like cheating or not cheating is bound to change. And like, I think, in my opinion, it will change very fast, because for example, let's say at let's say where I work, nobody would give me like more praise or like more money or like more if, let's say, I did not use AI to, like, I don't know, streamline some of my documentation for developers. Like if it took me like, I don't know, normal few days other than, let's say, a few hours now. The same as like if you go to an accountant, if your accountant calculated everything by hand, you will not pay them more than they calculated your taxes by hand. You will want them to be accurate and to understand your situation. So the same with students. We cannot emphasize to them that like, you will not be using AI in real life. Like, we're going to tell them, you will need to learn how to use AI, but you also need to develop your own intelligence to understand if AI is giving you the right answer, Because I mean, I've seen students before who multiply like something times 1 or times 0 on the calculator because they say, just in case, we don't want that. I've seen that, and that's, yeah, very scary. I used to be a tutor, and I used to teach math circles here. Like in math circles, not so much, for tutoring pretty often. Yeah, so what I'm saying is that we need to we need to change our definition of assessment, and we need to change our definition of what it means to cheat or not cheat on assessment. And we need to make sure that students are actually knowing how to use AI properly, safely, and accurately. And if it's not accurate, they need to understand how to like reprompt. They need to understand, let's say, when to report a bug or an error. So yeah.
I want to thank you so much, because coming to these events really build the community together and makes all of us better. I hope. Our students are so lucky to have us. I want to thank the publishers. I want to thank the presenters so deeply.